So I've been tasked to tell you more about how we shoot a reality TV show. And everything that you've heard this morning and the questions that you've asked, everything is linked from the minute you start planning your reality show to shooting it, and later on in the afternoon when Andrew is going to talk to you about editing it, that's where it all comes together. So what I want to convey to you today is how we actually make sure that what we have in our heads and what is happening on location translates onto screen for the viewer. So ultimately, we are telling stories. That's what we're all here for today. We're all passionate about stories. We all want to tell stories that will move people, that will inspire people, that will have some sort of lasting effect, even if it's simply for entertainment value. But you have to, you want to create something that ultimately will impact on somebody else's life. Okay, are we all in agreement about that? Okay, fantastic. So we've talked about how you think about getting a story together, how you want to, what you want to tell, but ultimately my job is to tell you guys how you can actually capture that story for the viewer at home. We're not writing a novel where you can elaborate on paper and you can go to flights of fancy and you can create these magical worlds on paper. We work in the medium of television. So ultimately, the golden rule, if it didn't happen on camera, it didn't happen. And it's something that's very important that you guys need to remember. And it's the first thing, and if it's the only thing that you remember today, then my job will be partially done here. If it doesn't happen on camera, it doesn't exist for your viewer. It doesn't happen that your main character or your contestants talk about it in interviews. If you didn't see it happening, then the viewers are not going to buy into that reality. Okay. A lot of you guys have said earlier this morning that the problem that you have with bad reality shows is that you feel that it's scripted, that it's contrived, that it doesn't feel real. Okay? And often that happens is because the stuff that led up to what the supposedly big cathartic moment in your series is that there was no lead up, there was no buy-in from the viewer from the start. They didn't see it happening, they didn't anticipate it happening, or they weren't surprised by a different outcome to what you've been leading them to believe. Okay, so ultimately that is what we try to achieve when we shoot on location. And the very first thing about reality television is casting. It's so important that you cast the right people for your show. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're casting a talent show, idols, you need to cast the bad ones so that the viewers can laugh at them, and you need to cast the really, really good ones because those are the ones that the viewers are going to buy into and want to follow the journey. If you're casting a makeover show, you need to cast the ugly duckling. There's no point in doing a makeover for a supermodel. Okay. If you're casting a dating show, you need to cast someone who's really sincerely looking for love. If you're casting a Survivor series, you need to find someone who is so hungry to win R1 million. If it doesn't really matter to them, if they're there for the tropical island holiday, damn, do we have a surprise for them? Okay. If you're casting for MasterChef, you want someone who wants to change their life to become a professional chef. And that's what you need to find out right in the beginning when you start finding your contestants or your participants or whatever you want to call them. So depending on what the show is that you're going to do, I mean, there are loads of genres that you can develop your reality show for, but you need to know who you're going to be casting. So casting first and foremost. There's no point in casting someone who's just fame hungry unless your show is all about being famous. 15 minutes of fame. If that's the premise of your show, fantastic. You get your fame whores who will do absolutely anything, and they will even love it more if you film them while they're getting up to whatever they need to get up to. But ultimately, we want to identify with genuine people. People who strike some kind of chord with you when you watch television. And that's why reality television is successful. And we spoke about it earlier this morning about the difference in cultures with different TV audiences. In our country, we are so diverse, we have so many different cultural components to our audiences that you need to be very certain what kind of people you cast in your reality show, because you need to find that common factor with your viewer, because that's where viewers get engaged and they get excited about being part of your reality show. Okay, so we're going to start off with casting first and foremost. Audition processes, you've all seen it happening. Some of them form part of reality shows like Idols and MasterChef and those kind of things. But more often than not, you start off your opening episode with your 10, 12, or 1 contestants, whoever they are. But the casting process is a lot more than just picking entrants, you know? So if you are going to do for your, let's talk about your 10-minute reality show that you're going to do. If it's a format that you want to create that possibly can be sold off to the world, you need to find that person whose story and whose character is applicable to your theme or your story. So let's give me an example of a favorite reality show, any of you? Anyone? Yeah. Survivor, okay. So Survivor, what you want, you have a group of contestants, okay? You have 18 or 20 people. So now you think about who you're going to need. You're going to need the bad guy, firstly, okay? Who else do you need? Let's talk about characters. What other characters would you need in a Survivor? So we have the bad guy, that's the first and foremost. The good guy, okay? Or girl, okay? You need the two-faced guy, okay? The guy that comes out of nowhere and no one expects. Okay, what else? Those are gullible people, the people who are easily persuaded. That nobody cares about. The foil. Okay, I'll talk about them in a minute, but it's very important. It's interesting to have someone like that. Who else? You need the popular one. So what's popular in your mind? Beautiful people. Beautiful people. Hate to break it to you guys, but we work in a visual medium. You need to have beautiful people. It's one of those things. On all the television shows that I've worked on, every single one of them, without fail, the popular people in the first half of your series are the beautiful people. Later on, it's fine, because then you start developing characters and you get to know people, and the ugly duckling who transforms into someone beautiful on the inside. Those are the kind of people that later on become popular. But first and foremost, beautiful people. Okay, so who else? The wise guy, yeah. The jocks, okay, the guys who think they know everything and they think they know, but the minute they hit an obstacle course without having eaten for 3 days, cool. Sorry? The underdog. Okay, so generally, and if you think about that, if you think about soapies, and if you think about drama series, all those characters exist. So you're doing exactly the same thing than what you would do is when you cast a drama series, or when you script a drama series. Your characters are similar in a reality TV show. Gillian earlier said that stereotypes are your friends, and we've all pointed them out now. Okay, so stereotypes are the kind of characters that you need. The downtrodden, the confident, all those kind of aspects are important. Then, characteristics is one thing. If someone cannot express themselves clearly and succinctly, they're not going to work on television. If you have a mumbling idiot, however good their intentions are, if they can't express the way they feel in an interview or in a scenario or just within interaction with other people, the cast, if you want to call them that way, they're not going to work on television. Those are the people that you write about in novels and in short stories and those kind of things. So very important that you have to have people who can communicate. Okay, I'm not talking about language skills. I'm not talking about someone who has the vocabulary as big as this country is. It's someone who can just simply express themselves. And expression is often just in a face. You know those people that you find dreadfully boring. You know? They're lovely. But we all have them in our families. You know, the minute they start telling a story, good grief. Bring out the booze, please, to liven the situation. Unfortunately, if we make television, those are the people that you need, that won't make the cut. And that's why often in MasterChef in anything really, in all of these casting auditions, if people don't make the cut, they say, but I'm such a good cook, I have such potential, I'm amazing, or I could run an obstacle course without having eaten for days, or whatever. But dude, you have the personality of a plank. It's not going to work. And we have to be those critics. We have to be those harsh people to make those decisions, because ultimately, your viewer wants to be entertained. And that's what we want to do. Okay? So casting is really, really important. But you can't cast if you don't know what story you want to tell. So if you want to do the makeover show, the changing someone's life for the better, you need to find that family whose child is living in a bubble, or whose house has been destroyed by a tornado, or whatever the case may be. So you have a point of departure. You have tragedy, and you build them up, and you make it successful, and you make it give it a happy ending. Okay, so in each of your genres that you want to do, is you need to find out who would I like to see on television. If you want to do a celebrity profile, okay, you're not going to take someone that no one knows or no one cares about, or a has-been, for example, unless your has-been story is bringing them back into the limelight. Rehab with Dr. Drew. All these washouts who's been famous, and now they want to claw their way back into the headlines. Those are fabulous people, those desperate ones. The C-listers and the D-listers, they're fantastic for reality TV. Okay. MasterChef, for example. You need someone who's passionate about cooking, but the premise of the show is amateur cooks. So not a professional. People who cook for the love of food. People who cook because they have a natural talent for it, and they want to change their lives from being a banker or being a model or being somebody to becoming a professional chef. So that desire needs to be within them. Okay, and then the people, and the same line, those people who can talk to you and who can convey a message. Okay, so casting, any questions about that? Yeah.
My question is about the makeover show.
Yeah.
Would you say it's easier to get someone, like let's say pretty, right, and then make them look ugly so that the outcome's better?
What is the satisfaction in that? What is that? Okay, it's a valid question, guys. What is your premise then? What is your journey? So you're taking someone pretty,
Yes.
and then
What you're doing is that you're washing them down and
Yeah.
making them look like they're not pretty.
yeah.
And then you want your outcome to be really explosive, like really big, like they're like, wow. And that's the main premise. You've got someone who's pretty, but you make them look ugly and you want them to look pretty in the end.
So your premise for the viewer is to entertain them, just to make it fun and frivolous. Can work. It can work. If you want to see the beautiful Miss SA in a fat suit with pimples and those kind of things. But what is the payoff for the viewer? Just to see their exterior? Or would you, for example, put that pretty person into a less beautiful exterior and sending them out into society to see how their experience is different from being a beautiful person? Now there's a TV show. Often with reality shows, is what we do is we take the ordinary person on the street and we give them the platform, access to professionals, to training, to tools that will equip them to succeed in whatever they want to do. I mean, a lot of reality shows are about fast-tracking someone within an industry. The Apprentice, MasterChef, Idols, whatever the case may be. So essentially you need to have someone with potential so that you can take that raw potential and then take the contestant and the viewer on the journey to a positive outcome at the end of the day. Okay. So casting is very important, guys. You need to know that these people have the potential to take you as a filmmaker on a journey, but ultimately also the viewer on a journey. Okay, I want to get down to shooting, actually, the actual shoot and how that works and what is important. So you've heard about doing your script outline for what you want to achieve, and I want to talk within your reality, 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, you don't have a 13-part series of an hour episode every week to start telling a story. So you need to be very clever about the way you want to convey your story. So you need to have a very definite start and a very definite end in your 10 minutes to give the viewer the satisfaction, but also have the potential to be developed into a bigger format. You know, Australian MasterChef is 85 episodes. Okay? Our one is 18 episodes. The Americans do it in 13 episodes. The UK sometimes do it in one standalone episodes. So it's the same format, but it has different applications. You can stretch it either which way. A good reality format, at the end of the day, is something that can have different applications. So within your 10-minute show, you need to be able to establish the characters, establish the premise, set up the jeopardy, take them on a journey, and then have the outcome in 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Okay? So when you plan your show, and when you plan your shoot days or day, I don't know how long, they have 3 days. 3 days access to equipment. So within those 3 days, you need to make sure that you shoot everything that you'll be able to tell that story in edit. Okay, so I've worked on shows where you have an hour of footage and you have to get 24 minutes out of it. I've also worked on shows where you have 150 hours of footage and you get 1 minute out of it. Okay. Nowadays, we're shooting on cards and shooting digitally. It's far easier to point and shoot and just keep the cameras rolling. Previously, when you were working on tapes, you had a real cost because every single tape that you stick into a camera costs money. If you have one data card and you can download on your laptop or whatever, you can keep going, and that makes us lazy as filmmakers. And what is very scary is if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a shoot schedule or a shot list, it's very easy to just point and shoot, and then you come back to edit, and then there's not really anything to work with. Okay? That is very, very important. Also, the most boring thing on television is this shot. Okay? It's the wide shot. So we're filming a lecture now, and I want to see the experience of individuals. Okay? But I only have one static shot. Although I can't see individual faces, I can't see reactions, I can't see people yawning, I can't see people being interested, taking notes, that kind of thing. So you need to have a diverse shot selection so that you can make compelling television. Okay, so shot selection, shot listing is very important when you shoot for reality television. Okay, so when you establish your location, okay, let's say we are doing a makeover show about a shack in a township. And the premise is we are going to take the family who live in that shack and we are going to use those structures. What it is, we're not going to build them a new house. We're going to use those structures and then we're going to improve that for them, their living conditions. So what would be the shots that you would need to establish their reality at the moment? We need close-ups of the characters. Okay, we need to see their faces, we need to say who they are, so that that emotion that they're experiencing can be conveyed. Okay, so close-ups. Next up. Establishing shot of the shack. Okay. Okay, there's someone saying not just the shack. What more? Okay, so the greater location. Okay, the greater location, and you can use it any which way you want. You can start off on the shack, on the front door of the shack, and you can pull out, or you can start wide and you can go in. Those kind of things, sir?
You can do a time shot from the beginning of the project to the end of the project.
Absolutely, that is a luxury to have, because that would mean that you need to have a camera that's slaved, and that's it. But you can show progress, you know. So every day, part of your shot, say for example you have a 3-day shoot, you can schedule in the morning, mid-morning, afternoon, evening, that your cameraman has to get a shot of that house. So, and on 3 different days, you will have 12 different shots that you can use as a sequence. So absolutely, time lapses are very, very effective as well. Another shot in the beginning, the opening, that you would need.
You also need a close-up of the actual shack in terms of the holes that are there and what you crack.
Absolutely. The leaking tap. The crack in the window where the wind comes through in the winter months. Those kind of things. Things that are pictures that's not necessarily needed to be explained to the viewer, because that's laborious, you know. We all know a picture says 1,000 words. It's so true in our life. And for you who's going to shoot 10 minutes only, if you can find that picture that's going to explain what is the reality. That is more effective than someone saying, you know, I'm so cold at night when the wind howls through the cracks in the walls. You know?
I was going to say you can also shoot street names and things that establish where we are.
Definitely. If you don't have a narrator or you don't have a voiceover, the viewer knows, okay, I'm in Vilakazi Street, or I am in Guguletu, or I am in a rural setting. That's also very easy to convey with the right shot selection. Okay, so you guys get the sense of what you would need for one specific thing, the shack. You need a variety of things. And as filmmakers, and you guys are going to do everything, you need to make sure that you have enough time to shoot what you need to shoot, and you need to know that you have enough variety when Andrew and his team steps in as editors, so that there is a compelling selection of shots, because there's nothing more boring than having no choice whatsoever. Okay, so shot selection is really, really important. And it takes a long time, guys. So you're going to most probably work with one camera, 2 cameras at most if you're very lucky. So you need to plan how you're going to shoot that. And often, reality television, your establishers are the ones that you can spend take 2, take 3, take 4, take 5 on. Because when reality starts happening, you don't have time to let people do things over again. Because then that's when you get to situations where it feels contrived and it feels scripted and it feels acted. Okay, so you need to spend time on your establishers and your cutaways, so that those things that's not impacted by the drama that is unfolding, so that you have enough of that for your editors to work with. Okay. Then the other important thing is how to drive your narrative in your reality show. Do you have your presenter? Is the presenter setting up the scene? Now we're going to... Sihle is very sad because she doesn't know who her father is and she's never met him before, and she now desperately needs to find him, whatever the case may be. So he or she tells you the story. But sometimes you don't have a narrator. Sometimes you don't have a presenter. So you can use voiceover, or you can use interviews. Interviews is very, very powerful, because that person is telling you how they're feeling. And the viewer then gets under the skin of that person. Okay. So unless your narrator or your presenter is established as that person, Ty Pennington in Extreme Makeover, he shouts, you know, but you know that his heart is in a good place. He annoys me to no end, but his heart is in a good place, and he's the guy who facilitates everything and gets everything together, and he's the go-to guy, that kind of thing. Okay, so you need to decide how you want to convey your stories when for shoot day. Because you need to make, if it's interviews, in MasterChef, for example, interviews are the driving force. We hardly ever have voiceover, so if the judges don't communicate with the viewer and the contestants themselves are telling us what's happening. So you need to schedule enough time for interviews, okay, in your shoot. Now interviews, let's talk about interviews. The common mistake that we make is we have conversations, you know. So the director sits here, camera is over here, contestants is over here. So we start having conversations with people. And often you get so caught up in the emotion of the moment that you tend to forget that you don't exist to the viewer. No? The director does not, it just happens. So you can't talk over them. No? You can't talk, you can have a conversation, but you need to be able to have a clear soundbite from an interviewer. So if I'm asking you, how are you feeling right at this point? And you are saying to me, I'm a little bit annoyed, I'm a little bit bored, or I'm cold, or whatever, and you say, yeah, so am I, I'm also, and you fall into that trap. And if you haven't made the mistake before, you won't know it, because it's a natural thing to have a conversation. So as an interviewer, and the directors are always the interviewers, or your content directors on a big shoot, whatever. You need to have that skill to know that you ask leading questions, no yes or no questions, but that you need to wait for the person to finish what they're saying. Moment of silence, and then ask your next question. Okay, it's very important. The editors tear their hair out. Andrew doesn't have any hair because of that. Okay? And it's a stupid thing. I mean, it's a simple thing that you don't think about, but that is very, very important. And sometimes in a 10-minute reality show, I'm working on a show at the moment where we have 44 minutes on screen. Okay, we shoot 2 days an episode. We shoot with 7 cameras. It is an enormous amount of footage. So I can't have an interview soundbite of someone explaining to me in 5 minutes what they're feeling or what they're doing. Okay, so you also need to be able to guide people to say to you in this bit what they actually mean. And sometimes it doesn't have to be words. It can be someone wiping a tear from their eye. It can be someone who says, "Oh!" That's it. That's all you need. Okay, but you need to know what you need to get from that person for putting your show together. So, for example, you've shot now. Someone has just kicked over the last bucket of paint for the shack. There's no more money. We don't have that. You now know that you need someone to explain that situation to you. Okay, so you sit someone down in an interview and you say, okay, so what just happened? This happened. What is the impact of that? How does that make you feel? Because there's no point in someone telling you what the pictures are going to show to the viewer. Okay, so if the viewer has seen the paint being spilled, there's no point in you telling me in an interview, the paint has just been spilled. What is the effect of that? What is the outcome? What does that mean to you? Okay, so in MasterChef, just to use an example that's currently my reality, is you see that the souffle is flopped. I don't need you to explain to me that it's flopped. I want to know why. Why did it flop? Oh, because I didn't beat my egg whites for long enough. Or, what does this mean? I'm going home. The judges are going to send me home. My dream's going to be over, and cue the tears. Okay, that's the kind of thing. So as an interviewer, you need to know what questions to ask so that you can tell the story in your edit later on. Okay. I think the biggest luxury or the biggest skill that any director, whether you're a content director or a technical director, whatever the case may be, is to always have the edit process in mind at the end of the day. Okay. That's very important. I don't know who of you have editing experience, or, yeah, let me ask that question. Who's been in an edit suite before? Who's put something together? So quite a few of you, okay. You know the frustration when that shot that you're looking for is not there. Okay? Okay. Okay, so that is very important. You can't just be caught up in the reality of the day. You actually need to know in your head how this potentially can develop, how this can go out. Okay. So you can control cutaways, establishes, and interviews, things that you can control. Okay. Reality, you can't necessarily control. Okay. But you can anticipate and you can plan for stuff to happen. Okay. Yes.
What I wanted to know, because I'm from like the film background type of thing, when we shoot for edit.
Yeah.
And we know what to do for the editor to cut
Yeah.
in reality, I don't know how it works. How you shoot for edits in reality TV.
Okay. That's where the script comes in. That Anton and Gillian has been speaking about earlier today. If you have, what is your favorite reality show? Kim Kardashian. Fantastic. Okay. So let's say you are now the director of a Kim Kardashian episode. There's no point in just following these people around with a camera. So in this episode today, we are going to shop for high heel shoes on 5th Avenue in Hollywood. And we send the 3 sisters, so we're going to shoot for, and they are going to try on different high heel shoes from different designers, and we're going to see who fits it best, who wears it best, who's going to fall over, who's not going to fall over. So you need to have a plan in your head, kind of what you need to do. So when you go in, you get the shots of 5th Avenue, you get the shots of the boutiques, you get the shots of the shoes, different close-ups, you get the shots of people walking in high heels, you get the shots of people walking in sneakers. So to show the contrast. Then you do the interviews with your Kardashian sisters saying, so Courtney and Kim wants Chloe. Courtney and Kim wants me to start wearing high heels. I hate the damn things because I'm so tall and I'm going to fall over. That's the setup. Okay, so is Chloe going to fall over? Those are the kind of things that you can script beforehand. So you take them and you put Chloe in the 15-inch, I don't know how high the shoes are, in the highest possible stilettos that you can find. But you don't know what's going to happen though. Okay, so in other words, you've scripted your stuff and that's the scene. So the outcome can be, she aces it, she minces down the street of Fifth Avenue and get whistles from everybody, or she falls flat on her face. But you have to be prepared for both outcomes. So the fact is, you shoot all the stuff that you can plan, and then when you get to your reality moment, you have your 2 different outcomes. Never more than 2 or 3 different outcomes, because you can't plan for absolutely any eventuality. So that's the difference. But if you script the drama, you know exactly that this is the scenes, these are the lines that they're going to say, this is what they're going to do, these are the shots that I need. Reality is a little bit more flexible and it's a little bit more hands-on on the ground. But you as a director have an idea of what's going to happen and what the possible outcomes are. Okay. Question?
Yeah, I don't know, in terms of, because I remember when I was shooting for the Great Red Legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a point where the directors were there and I had to make a plan, like go for the medium shot, the wide. I think sometimes it's intuition as a camera operator.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's incredibly important to have intuition. And you guys, I mean, if you want to make a career as a filmmaker, I mean, you wouldn't have gone to become a banker if you can't even work a calculator, you know? All of you have some kind of talent, okay? Some kind of ambition, some kind of passion, some kind of instinct. And it's very important, and that's ultimately what directors are about, filmmakers are about, is that you have your own personal instinct that you then make calls on, and hey, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's one of those things. You come to an edit where you realize it would have been fantastic to have had the close-up, but we just don't have it at the moment. Okay. So it is, you are right, and that is what makes reality such an exciting but also such a challenging medium. Okay.
Like, do they shoot it in segments? Like segment, let's say MasterChef, segment 1, we have where they are told that they're going to cook this. So that's the segment. Do they shoot it that way? Segment 1, segment 2, segment 3?
Yeah. You do. MasterChef is a little bit different because when you do segment breaks, your segment breaks are reliant on cliffhangers. Something that can go wrong, something that can't go wrong. But you shoot your different elements of the day. So you shoot your intro, you shoot your challenge briefing with the judges. If there's a demonstration, there's a demonstration. And then you shoot your challenge itself, the cooking itself. And then after that, you shoot your tasting and then your verdict. That doesn't mean those are the segments as it's going to be broadcast on television, as you're going to package it in post. Because there might be a moment where someone's hair catches on fire while they're cooking. That's a fantastic cliffhanger. Damn, I wish that happened. But, so those kind of things. So what ultimately you do is you have your structure for the day, but that's not necessarily going to be the way you segment it for broadcast or package your specific episode. Okay? But you have to work according to a schedule and according to a plan, so that you know that today these are the 4 different activities that we are going to film. All right. Okay. So let's go to the reality moments. I think that's, yeah. Sorry, sorry, man.
You mentioned going to a boutique or something like that. So before going there, you already have permission from the store or something like that, because it seems like they just decided to go there now.
Okay, absolutely. That's a very, very important question. And you will often, the producer or your production manager will facilitate those kind of things. The question was, if you go to the boutique store to go and film there, do you have prior permission to come and film there? Absolutely. You have to have permission and permits and so forth. But what you can do is in the morning, while your director is briefing your contestants, you can already have your crew shooting there, getting all the cutaways, getting all the shoes on the displays, the outsides, the exteriors, that you don't have to waste time, that when you bring your contestants there, to still have to do that. Do it before or do it after. But you can plan your shoot in such a way that everything that doesn't involve the contestants can be done beforehand. Okay. So permission is a very big thing if you shoot on location, absolutely. But Kristen and Curious and Indemol will facilitate that for you guys. Okay. So when we get to the reality moments, you cannot go into a shoot without knowing what possibly can happen. You know, because you can't tell people to say, now have a fight with that one. Okay? Because that's the stuff that pisses you off. I mean, from a Forever Young or from a Nonhle Goes to Hollywood. You know? Those are the kind of things, because it doesn't feel real. So what you need to do is you have your the fighting sisters or the geek and the jock in the same situation. You need to anticipate what your scenario is going to be and what you want the outcome to be. So if you want a fight as a director, make sure there's something that they can fight about. Don't prompt the fight, but bring in, the car doesn't start. You know, it's very easy to manipulate that. So they're late for an appointment, and then the car doesn't start. You know? You don't tell them how to react to it, but you have facilitated a catalyst, a moment that is going to create content. Okay, that's a very stupid example, the car that doesn't start. But for example, in Survivor, if you have people that are in a situation on an island, and you know there's one person who is going to backstab someone else, okay? And you set that whole thing up. You need to find out from that person how they're going to do that. You know? Who are they going to approach to betray? So that you can anticipate that the cameras can be there when that moment happens. Okay? You can't contrive it. You can't make it happen. You can't script it. But you need to be aware of what happens and what is potentially going to happen, okay, in that scenario. When you feel, Tracy and I, we've done it 100 times on Survivor, when you have your immunity idols in your back pocket, and you just wait for the moment where things are getting all kumbaya, and everything's getting lovely, and everyone's getting along, and we don't want to vote anybody off, and then you plant an immunity idol. And someone finds it, or there's a clue that arrives, and someone finds it, and it stirs up a whole lot of shit. Okay, so you provide those catalysts for your content to be created. You don't script it, but you plan it. You can't script people to say lines, but you can script scenarios to unfold. Okay, do we all understand what I'm trying to say with that? You are in control of what you're going to shoot, but to a certain extent that some things are controllable, and other things you need to be able to anticipate what's going to happen. Yeah.
The chefs always cut themselves. Like, are those scripted or those moments?
The chefs always cut themselves.
Yeah, like,
So they're like,
yeah, like,
who do you know who would willingly cut themselves? Okay? Okay, there's the thing. There's the thing. They're under time constraints. The knives are as sharp as all hell. Okay? There's a lot of pressure. There's a judge yelling in your ear to finish stuff. That's what you've created. You do not create the moment where someone cut themselves, but you anticipate that it can potentially happen. So when they're chopping the onions and they only have 30 seconds to chop a kilo of onions, you say to the cameraman guy on the fingers, because blood's going to spurt. Okay? It's not scripted, but it's something that could happen. Okay? And that's what makes our jobs as directors so incredibly difficult, because you need to concentrate and you need to focus and you need to be prepared for any eventuality. And we say, if you want good reality, script it. But my favorite line about reality television is sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. And you stand back and you say, I can't script this shit. Because it's so unbelievable, the stuff that's happening at the moment. But what that moment gives you is the opportunity to take your story into a certain direction, and you need to be prepared for that moment. Okay, so you have the power to create catalysts for certain storylines to come out. Okay? So to create interesting storylines, you have to cast your people. You have to have interesting people so that you can anticipate what they could potentially do. And like Tracy's now said, you facilitate those moments where the hot-headed person who doesn't have any control over what they say can blow up, you know? So you bring that moment in. You don't say to them you're going to blow up, but you make them do it by gently nudging them into certain directions.
You costed for that?
No. But people develop in such a way. People show their true colors very quickly in such a specific, like in Survivor, for example. It's very quick to start seeing. And I'm the first to admit, casting people in a certain role can be very, very rewarding, but also sometimes people surprise you to no end. And that's a wonderful feeling. When someone says, someone you've never pegged to last long, or to become a plan maker, or to become a blindsider, or whatever the case may be. And they may turn into that. That's a wonderful journey for the viewer. Okay. So creating storylines doesn't happen on set. It's the biggest mistake you can make. You can't wait for things to happen. You have to make it happen. When you go to set and you go and shoot, you need to know what you want to get out of this day. Okay? And by that, I don't mean scripting. You need to know the potential outcomes, and you need to be prepared for that, and to make sure that you get all the shots that you need to tell that story to the viewer. And that's a big mistake we often make, because we experience something in reality, on set. We experience things in a certain way. We see something out of the corner of our eye that has an impact on what is happening through the viewfinder. And it's our job to go and get what's happening there so that the viewer can also be drawn into that reality. Because like I said, if it didn't happen on camera, it never happened. Okay, so you must constantly think like a viewer, like an editor and then as a viewer when you're shooting your show. Okay, multiple storylines. When you can't just have one story. Maybe for you guys in the 10-minuter, it's doable, but it's always advisable to have a secondary storyline and a third and a fourth or whatever. So often you need to be able to schedule your day in such a way that you can let things unfold the way your main storyline that you've anticipated, but often in that, how that happens, more storylines come up, you know? Extra stories become apparent, or things that you can follow. And then you need to be able to follow that thread through by interviews, and by follow-up situations, people crying, whatever the case may be. So you can't just call, it's not like on a film set or on a drama set or on a soap set where people say, that's a wrap, and you walk away. Often, when you think you're going to wrap, the secondary storyline or the third or the fourth storyline is actually something that can still be followed up. Okay. Very importantly, you need to build trust with your contestants, with the person that you are featuring in your show. Okay. You can ask any content director who's working on reality TV shows. They become psychologists and confidants. Okay. A director and a content director is often very different in the sense that the director takes a little bit of a back seat in a way that they don't engage on a very personal level. The content directors are the guys who are holding hands with the contestants and building up a trusting relationship so that they can burst into tears in an interview situation when there's a camera on them, you know, where they really feel you have their best interest at heart. And sometimes, guys, on these long shows, you get so irritated with these contestants, but you fake it. You fake it. A good director fakes it all the time, because you really need to know why they are so consumed with emotion right now. All you actually want to do is go and have a beer because the rest of the crew is wrapped already. But you can't. You need to spend time with that person so that you can build up a relationship of trust so that they can give you that soundbite that's going to put your story together, that's going to string your story together. Okay, so whatever your narrative device is, whether it is a host, a presenter who interviews people, or who chats to people, or whether it is voiceover, or whether it is an interview, make sure that you've got a firm grasp on what you need to get out of that person to be able to tell your story.
A show that I watched on Tyra, where you know the models, I think the producer is the one that did intimate and talks to them. And one of the contestants said something very personal to the producer, and they actually had used that in the show, and then she was very upset that they had used it because it was something private. So does a contestant know that whatever they say can be used during the duration of the show?
It's a release form. It's called indemnity.
So why was she like so upset?
Yeah.
That I can't
Because people are human and people feel like they're being exploited. Do you know what? If you sign up for a reality show, baby, we're going to exploit you. You know? It's just one of those things. I mean, yeah, you have to sometimes be ruthless. And people can't, and you can never allow the talent or the contestants to manipulate you. You always need to be able to have that objective view of what you want to achieve. And that's why it's so important to have your story in your head, your outcome in your head. So if you're going to shoot with one camera, my advice would be is to get all your cutaways, all your establishing shots, all those kind of things out of the way when you're on location. Then have your reality moments, what you anticipate, your different scenes, your catalysts ready. Let that roll. You don't have to do interviews chronologically. Okay, you don't have to, before we take the Kardashian sisters to the store. We don't have to do the interviews before we go to the store, okay? We can do all the interviews at the end of the day. With MasterChef, we do interviews after they've cooked, before tasting happens, if there's time. Sometimes we only do interviews at the end of the day. And that's the trick now. So the day is over. Someone has either been eliminated or has made a fantastic dish. You need to compose them in such a way that they will be able to tell you the story as if it's happening right now. So that's where the present tense interview technique comes in. It's quite a new thing. I mean, and I think MasterChef has kind of sort of broken new ground in that instance because you are confined to a time challenge. This must happen and then this must happen. It's not like Survivor where you can pull someone from sitting around a fire to quickly do an interview, that kind of thing. You have to let the whole thing play out and then only afterwards you can do interviews. So the thing is, with MasterChef, it's recipe driven, it's process driven. People want to know how the food is cooked, okay? What you made. So you ask that person, you are standing and you have your recipe and you have all your ingredients. What is the thing that scares you most? And that person, the thing that scared me most was the avocado that wasn't really ripe at that stage. Not the soundbite you want. You want them to say, there is an avocado and I think I'm going to make this amazing mousse, but when I pick it up, it's as hard as a rock. That's your soundbite. Okay? Because it's in that moment. And contestants, inexperienced people, like you will cast normal people, will take a while to get into it. It's your job to coach them in a way that they get that technique under the belt.
You feed them the avocado line if they don't do it?
No. No. You try not to. Sometimes, if it takes 10 minutes to get that line out of them, you say, basically what I want you to say is that you had this plan, but the avo was hard. Okay. And then they will say it to you in their own words. Okay. Never try to put words into their mouth because it's so scary when people say, oh no, that was scripted. Because if that's not that person, and there's no point in putting the soft-spoken girl who, I don't know who of you have watched MasterChef, this one. There was a lady in our show called Mutsi. Very soft-spoken. She cried a lot, but she was never explosive or anything like that. And one day, she screamed into camera out of frustration. But somehow, we couldn't use that because the viewer will be so confused. Where does that come from? Because that's not the character we built for her. We always build her as the character, as the soft-spoken woman who internalizes her emotions, who cries, who takes the back seat. So there's no point in making someone say something when it's going to feel like it doesn't really belong to that character. Okay, so that's also something that you need to be careful, be aware of. Okay, so I just want to see if I've... Okay, creating drama. We've talked about getting the 15-inch stilettos. Okay, 9-inch would not be such a big drama moment. 15, now there's a drama moment. Okay, or the rock hard avocado, or the immunity idol, or the bad guy in the group going to antagonize someone else. That is how you create the drama. And often, if you do interviews with people, you can plant seeds with them. So I've heard that this person has never happened. You lie all the time. Okay. So can you believe that that one is actually going to do? Really? No, I'm not saying, but I mean, I heard. Okay? That's the kind of stuff that you can plant. You can prompt people to do certain things, as long as it happens on camera. Okay. When you devise your format, you need to decide, will a presenter add any value to my show? Will it be great for the normal person on the street to interact with a well-known face, or whatever the case may be? Or is your format more driven about personal experience, about what the contestant themselves is experiencing at the moment? In most reality, competition-wise, it's always your judges that you have to narrate, and your host to narrate, like a singing competition or even a cooking competition. But if you're doing real life stuff, the Kardashians don't have a presenter. They are the presenters. You know, a lot of these celebrity profile stuffs are driven by voiceovers because it explains to you, to the viewer, what's going to happen next. The voiceover sets up certain situations. Voiceover is a very powerful thing, but it also can be exploited and used unnecessarily. In MasterChef, the creative treatment and the format integrity is based on the fact that the contestant is telling you what they're experiencing. Because there's no point in a voiceover telling me that Handrie is really upset because his meringue flopped. I want to hear it from Handrie. I want to hear it from the contestant. And that's why you need to make that decision beforehand, how you want your story to be told, how you want your viewer to connect. Do you want your viewers to connect with a presenter who then is the linked to your contestant or to your participant? Or do you actually want the participant to tell you the story? And it's a tricky situation, because if you have someone who's not that eloquent, someone who struggles to express themselves, then that becomes a problem if your narrative is driven by the participant in the show. Then a voiceover is advisable, or someone else to facilitate interviews and conversation. If you have a narrator or a presenter and something big happens in a scene, it's great to have that, to keep that in the moment, to keep your contestant in the moment. Often it's not physically possible or technically possible to immediately shoot an interview. So what you would then do is you would isolate that person so that they don't debrief with anybody else, so that you don't let that emotion go. We often hold people in rooms. They're not allowed to talk to anybody else. They have to wait until the cameras are ready to speak to them, and then they debrief. You know, then they let go. So it is very important. It's a good thing that you've touched on, is the fact that keep it as close to the reality moment as possible. I mean, I'm not talking about general narration of the day's events, but if something happens right now, right here, if someone falls and injures themselves, that's the moment where you need to be ready to get sound bites from them. And then you don't even need to use your presenter necessarily. If your presenter is somewhere else, you can get a sound bite from that person right there and then. That's creative license. But to get that emotion is vital to your show. But then you also want to tread the fine line of, do I interrupt someone who's crying to get a sound bite from them? Or do I wait until I've gotten all the crying scenes in the can and then ask them? Okay, and that's what your gut instinct will tell you on the day. Cool.